I didn't know I was doing the overview on the protocol. That's a big ask.
There's this level of programmability that gets opened up.
Crypto doesn't necessarily always need to create like brand new things. Crypto just needs to do existing things better and cheaper.
I think Ethereum has this incredibly unique opportunity to be the source of truth.
How can we solve the problem of agentic trust?
GM, welcome to the second episode of Bonafides. Really excited for this chat today. We have some fantastic guests on a topic that everyone is talking about, x402. This is something that I think could change a lot of things in the future. And wanted to just quickly introduce some of the guests that we have. So Binji, so-called janitor from Ethereum Foundation. Thank you, welcome. And dhai, a dev that has made really interesting things with the x402 protocol and ideas, and Bushi from Moloch Research. Just as a quick overview, so x402, it all comes from this HTTP status code 402, which required, which basically when you call a server with a request, it could come back and say payment is required. And then, of course, the internet went to a world where that was not the dominant economy. The dominant economy was, of course, ads. It was subscriptions, and but now with x402, we have a chance to change all of that. And I just wanted to pass it to Bushi to kind of give us an overview of the x402 protocol, what it means, and then we can get the conversation started.
I didn't know I was doing the overview on the protocol. That's a big ask. Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a lot of interesting stuff that's been happening with the agentic stuff in general. Like it seems almost like Google's been leading the charge, at least with like the kind of like protocol level framework, like with their agent type of stuff. And so it was interesting to see Coinbase kind of lead the charge on this, and it seems like there was also like a lot of other organizations around it too. But I think like a lot of people are still just trying to figure out like, okay, what is this? Like, what does it mean? What can we do with it? And to be honest, like I'm still trying to figure that out too. Like I've been working now on this like heads down for like the last week, but still like I am still trying to figure it out too, and like what a good use case would be for it. And so like my highest level interpretation of it is that it's basically enabling the ability to essentially monetize links. And then you can do some really powerful things with that. And it's bringing it down into like a fundamental level. But again, I'm still struggling to like really understand the deep fundamental technical level. So maybe somebody else here can dive a little bit more into like some of the technical stuff.
I can take a stab at it. Probably not like very in the weeds of the technical stuff, but like exactly. I mean, I think it's just cool to see technology converge from something that actually existed. Like x402 existed years ago. It's always been around. It kind of just got revived. And it's cool to see how like, you know, when you're building something, you might leave something to the side and continue building something else. But even the things that you'd leave to the side 20, 30 years down the line, someone might actually pick it up and change the world with it. It's pretty cool to see that. So I think like one way, and please like keep me honest here, like that I've been thinking about x402 as a whole is the internet has given us information without friction, right? Like I can send you information. I can send you a text immediately. x402 kind of extrapolates that for essentially value without permission, right? It's the moment where like the internet stops being necessarily just read-only, and like the regular internet for money and can become more of a live economic system, you know, not this like weird hodgepodge patchwork of like logins, cards, middlemen, etc. So I think that's like one general gist. Like in terms of like technically what it is, one way to think about it is it revives a forgotten part of the HTTP standard. HTTP standard is like literally what we have on the internet when you type a website in. Also, side note, if you were to actually research like the internet wars, the TCP IP wars, they're very similar to the blockchain wars, and history does repeat itself. So that's a massive rabbit hole to get down. But anyway, so x402 revives this part of this HTTP standard. 402 basically means like the payment required code. So when you request a resource online, instead of a sign-up wall or like enter your credit card to pop up, the server can actually respond with the price and payment details. And you can pay directly. Now that we have blockchains that are fast and efficient, you can pay directly on chain. You can resend the request with proof of payment and the resource streams back. So it's like no necessarily a need for like accounts platform lock-in. One of the big things, like it's called the API killer. So there's no fragile API keys. It'll literally make, once we get this right, it'll literally make paying on the internet feel like clicking a link, which like in a way it kind of, you can argue kind of is, but then there's a variety of reasons why it's not as well, right? Like this is where the agentic side comes in. Like, yes, like for you, you can make a Venmo account, click a button, send money to your friend. You can make a Stripe account, click a button, and then buy something online. Agents don't have that, right? And like if you're really trying to build this world through which agents exist on the internet and have economic power, x402 is literally like a core part of that. I guess like to get into like why this matters and stuff too, it's like, you know, money is moved through these legacy pipes for agentic money and agentic commerce and just like the future. Those legacy pipes literally don't exist, right? Like for agents, because they're digitally native. So x402 is kind of this push, and blockchains have been on this for a while, and we're getting better and further at it. Is like, how do you build the true first ever internet native economy, right? Like a digital economy that both us and human machines can survive in. So an x402 is a clean native bridge between these web protocols and programmable money. Definitely not the only one. And I think it's actually the start. It's like this inflection point. When we take a step back, we're like, okay, we've been building this amazing decentralized system for humans. How do we actually make it inclusive for the ones that come after? So like, it's kind of a open-ended, I think that can get very philosophical too, and like how we would accommodate and live in that world and that agentic future. But importantly, like even on a general UX standard, like it'll just make life easier to pay online no matter where you're from. And that's always been a goal of what we're doing. So yeah, it's my stab at an explainer there.
Oh, amazing. I love that. Thanks, Binji. Oh, Dhai, you wanted to speak up?
Sure. I think one of the ways I like to think about it, and I agree a lot with what some of the stuff that Binji said. It just makes existing rails and infrastructure more accessible, and especially for devs who want to eventually make better products and make UX better for users. Like crypto checkouts have existed for as long as crypto has been around, but until now, like you would have to sign up to, I don't know, Coinbase or someone else, Daimo. I think Daimo Pay is there's a product, something like that. But all of them have their own different standards, and you'd have to integrate all of them differently. If you want to switch from one to another, it's not that easy. Like if I'm selling tickets to an event and I want to switch between vendors, it's not just as simple as, okay, I'm just gonna like remove one line of code and everything still works. What x402 does for devs is everyone selling things using crypto follows one single protocol in how people request and send payments for goods, for information, for services, anything you please, really. And obviously this is extremely convenient for AI agents as well, which I don't think we are there yet. I don't see a lot of agents like using it autonomously yet, but it's like someone left the status code in the HTTP standards 20 years ago because somewhere they knew that, oh, we don't have the Rails yet, but this is something that would be cool. And now we have someone who actually went ahead and implemented it. So maybe like in 5-10 years, we'll actually have agents using these Rails and doing things on their own, and we'll never interact with a checkout page again. Who knows? So it's quite exciting for me personally.
Yeah, it's actually incredible. I mean, isn't it fascinating that basically the designers of the internet and the designers of the HTTP protocol, they had envisioned a world where these services would require payment. And then, of course, the internet went a specific economic direction. And then the missing piece that was required was this permissionless like crypto system. And then finally, after 25 years, right, or a lot longer actually, that missing piece just like fell into place. And then now we're at the start of what we think is something incredibly powerful. And just as you said, Dai, today, fintech, any of these like old systems that, I mean, many would argue that it's not old, but if you think about fintech, so much of it is these kind of systems that require you to like sign up for things, and then you have to get permission. Whereas when you have it based on a crypto system, you'll actually just be able to, permissionlessly send ETH, Bitcoin, your favorite stablecoin, and then it actually could kickstart something really interesting. The question I want to pose is, in many ways, the way the internet economy developed, why is it that 402 in the HTTP status code, why is it that kind of like micropayment did not work out in the beginning? And then does it actually, are we in a world where things have changed, and then this idea of micropayments would actually work out with the crypto system?
I was going to bring that up as a question. So, like with the 402, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody here, I'm pretty sure though you could adopt it to use like other payment rails as well, right? Like it doesn't have to be just crypto, or at least you could apply the logic. I'm not sure on that side of things, but yeah, I thought about that because that's like been a kind of a key thing with like the application that I'm building with the X402 is like with traditional payment processors and payment services, there's always those payment processing fees, right? And I don't know like what the going rate is right now, but it's usually like a couple percentage points, or it's a couple percentage points plus 30 cents or whatever it is. There's always like payment processing fees built in. And so it kind of like makes it to where micropayments aren't even possible. Especially in the case where it's like every transaction is plus 30 cents, right? Because if your micropayment is less than 30 cents, then you're now running net negative, which is, you can't even do it at that point. So it kind of like, if you think about the future of the internet and you think about the future of, micropayments, there really is a case to be made, at least right now, with like what we can see with the facts that we have now. Like the only way you can do it is with crypto. Because it removes all of that stuff completely, right? And of course, you still have gas fees and stuff like that. But then you look even what's going on right now, where you have companies like Coinbase who are sponsoring gas, right? Because it makes economic sense for them. So it even removes that completely. Like who knows if that's sustainable long term, but it very well might be too, depending on kind of how the economy rolls out of these things. But I always like to look at things like that, where it's like, how can we show that crypto is the only path forward for certain things? And I really feel like on the micropayment side of things, like crypto really is the only way forward. Now the only issue with that though is it's still the UX UI, right? That still is a big kicker, because like the platform that I'm building, for instance, the user still has to have a crypto wallet of sorts to use the platform. Now obviously you can obfuscate that away with certain plugins and stuff like that. You can create a crypto wallet for the user from an email, right? And so they might not even know that they're using crypto. They just know they're logged in with their email address. But still, eventually rubber will meet the road. And when they want to get paid, they're going to have to figure out like, okay, how do I actually turn this into dollars into my bank account? And so yeah, I think it's very interesting. I think crypto will win the micropayments though, for sure, at least in the near term.
Absolutely. And I think, oh, go ahead, Binji.
Yeah, I just want to say I've been thinking a lot about what crypto is as a whole on the internet, right? Like I think we're at a point where like the goal is like, okay, in my opinion, and again, very subjective, is we have had hardware, we have had software. As more of our life becomes intertwined into those two things, we need trustware. Like we need a trust mechanism. As our life becomes more digital, we need this underlying sense of trust. In the real world, we have this, right? Like I can see something in front of my eyes and be like, that's real, that's fake. I don't have that online. And I think that's where money becomes the first use case of that trust, right? Like I sent you X dollars on the internet on chain, you sent me X back, like Y back, like great, okay, we are in a trusted payments network, and that's the first step. If we go even further than that and we're like, okay, we're imagining this agentic future, we're imagining something around that realm, how do they trust each other, right? They don't have physical, like they don't have a meet space, right? They're implicit at way that agents, which will then carry much more of our value, right? Agents will be doing various tasks for us already on the internet. People say AI is the new UI and whatnot. How do we trust them, one? And then two, how do they trust each other? Because they're probably gonna have to interact with various systems. That's where blockchains really come in. So I'm excited to see, like, you know, x402 is almost, and the combination of x402 and blockchains, essentially, we're recreating a broader internet-wide payments network that's accessible by both synthetic and like humans beings. And essentially, it's like a push for, okay, this broader trust layer to permeate across the internet. You can settle this in different ways, in centralized ways, but then there's inherent trust guarantees that you miss. And I do think this concept of trustware has been like more and more exciting as like something to dive into and explore. And also something that could hopefully make crypto feel a bit more relatable to people outside of the realm of just payments. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that's pretty deep. By the way, Bushi had some technical difficulties. He couldn't hear some of the guests, but now he can. But yeah,
like Twitter Spaces all over again.
We thought we resolved technical. We thought technology would help us, but it did not. Yeah, Binji, I totally agree with that, because in many ways, crypto is this kind of like, sometimes it feels like an island. And the way that, for example, we have the internet and we call it Web 2, right? We have the internet that has been created and a vast economy has been built in that world. And crypto feels kind of like an island that's separate from that. And I think that this kind of structure where new economic models, where crypto forms as the payment system, could actually fuse crypto with the existing internet. And so there's a lot of power. And this actually might be one of the step functions to kind of get crypto into mainstream, as opposed to a place where you just hold and store value. It is more like, oh, we're actually bringing the utility back into this world, and so feels really important.
Well, it creates like competition too. That's one of the key things as well that I think like 402 can kind of unlock. It's making it to where if you can do something cheaper and you can provide just as good or even better of a product, then a lot of these companies in the Web 2 world who have kind of like, I don't know, gotten fat and happy, and they kind of think that they're like too big to fail at this point, it starts to create a situation where, you know, no, like the customer will pay for the cheaper option because now the provider can cut their costs because their costs are even less. And so now it becomes like where, you know, crypto products or products that have crypto integrated into their infrastructure, they start to become less of like, oh, this is just like a fun toy that we can talk about. It becomes more of like a threat to these companies, to where they either have to adapt, or in a lot of cases these companies can't adapt either, because for instance, if they're sitting on a certain fee structure for the last 10 years and you come in and you create a product that can undercut that by like 90%, they can't cut that down by 90%. They'll go bankrupt. So it really creates this interesting like competition as well, that like I think Binji's tweeted a lot about it that I've seen, maybe in more articulate words, but kind of like, how can crypto come in and not, crypto doesn't necessarily always need to create like brand new things. Crypto just needs to do existing things better and cheaper. Like that's the killer use case. And then we can still innovate and do cool stuff, but in the end of the day, like there's going to be certain things that like we need, that we know work, and so let's just make that stuff better.
Yeah, totally. And I think with I'm curious what your guys' perspectives on this is when it comes to like artists in general as well. When we think about like micropayments and things, because one of the things that this unlocks, right, is literally just like easier micropayments across the internet, essentially. And why that gets interesting is like, I mean, if I were to give a very random off the top example, like Netflix, right? Like I pay Netflix a subscription. I don't, God knows how much it is now. I think it's gone up, right? Let's say it's £10. I'm in the UK, so gotta speak the language. Say it's £10. Those £10 go to Netflix itself, and maybe they distribute a little bit to the movies and the episode and TV shows, but they don't necessarily distribute it to what I'm watching. They distribute it to this broader pool, and it just goes around. Imagine like a micropayments future where like I'm paying the £10 subscription, but the money streams to what I'm watching. And just imagine that when it comes to content, social media, I'm paying like £150 a year for Twitter right now, right? Like there are ads and etc. like revenue shares that occur through that. But if it was actually from what I was paying attention to, you can create these like interesting micropayments that hopefully rewards creators better, even if they're in these like broader like distribution platforms. And that's just one other use case of like this micropayments world where like even if you take the agents out of the equation, you can kind of recreate these different ways in which people pay for like subscriptions in general. And it feels like there's definitely something there as well.
Yeah, I think people are, maybe some people though that are new to that concept might have a hard time understanding that, like thinking like, oh, you know, are they saying that like they want everybody to like be paying micropayments? Like, I don't necessarily think that's what Binji saying, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Binji, but and the concept's been around for a long time. I think like a really cool concept that I saw a while ago was like in the textile industry. It was like each artisan like shirt that was created, right? Like there were different people that touched the shirt to make it, right? There were people that like cut the fabric. There were people that, you know, sewed the fabric. There were people that packed the boxes and everything, right? And so there was these models. There was this company that was building this model around like basically doing like a profit share with every single person that touched the product, and they had like a way of like tracking this. And so it was like, you know, every single shirt that like when you bought a shirt, literally every single person that had touched that shirt, there was like a distribution model down to that person. And so I think in this x402 meta, or really not, maybe it's bad to call it a meta because it's not, but in this x402 you know, new wave of doing things, that could look like, so you have a server that does one thing, but maybe it needs a couple ancillary services, and those could also be x402s in order to complete the one thing that it does. And so, you know, let's say Binji calls my server through an x402 link, and he wants, let's say he wants like a poem written, right? And so my server writes poems. And so Binji calls my server, pays my fee to write the poem. Well, my server might need to call a couple other servers in order to get all of the stuff that it needs in order to, you know, create its poem. And this is like a really rudimentary example. But in that sense, then the micropayments are like flowing down chain to different people. And so it's like, it's all like chained together into kind of one thing. And that's kind of how I think this could all work in the future, is like, there's a bunch of x402s that are all chaining themselves together and kind of creating this, really this situation where you could have like a lucrative x402 endpoint yourself, and other people could be attaching into it to kind of create whatever their end product is that they're trying to do. And their end product might be on its way to being sold as well. It might not be an end product that they want as a user. They might be serving it to somebody else, which could be interesting.
That's such an illustrative example, Bushi, because like it brings to mind that it's such a, it'll create a much more dynamic capitalistic kind of like system, as opposed to some money goes into an opaque entity, and then that opaque entity does some computation of creating a reward system, feedback mechanisms for their business, and then eventually, you know, a month later, you know, the money flowing back to, let's say, you know, its dependencies, as opposed to the way that you described it, Bushi. It's almost like an instantaneous, like transitive, like, you know, dynamic flowing system at the moment of something being created or being done. It itself calls dependencies with the payment that it provides. So I think it's really interesting. And then the other thing, and also Dhai, I just wanted to, I think you had wanted to maybe speak up, and I just wanted to make sure you had a chance to speak up.
Oh, I've been actually thinking about gaming ever since you mentioned microtransactions, because I have been playing video games since I was like 9 years old, and I mean, I'm a happy Steam customer, but it's sometimes just not fair to video game creators how much platform fees they take, and even for in-game items. I think you guys must have heard about the recent market crash of CS:GO skins, and I mean, slightly unrelated to that, but all of those skins, when someone buys those skins, the creator does not get the entire money. It's like Steam getting to decide, okay, this skin actually makes it to the game. You can actually sell this skin. You can't sell this one. They can like abruptly ban someone's account where you have like thousands of dollars. I've had that happen to a friend of mine who used to have like $2,000 or $3,000 in his Steam account, and Steam just like woke up one day and decided, oh, you can't use that credit anymore. And that's something I've always hated. And you have to do that for all like Web2 platforms, for the lack of a better word. Like you have to deposit money using a traditional method, and then you are kind of at their mercy that, okay, like we can just wake up one day and decide you can't use this balance anymore. I think something really cool that microtransactions or micro payment primitives like this can do is making things like especially because video games are one of the biggest sources of microtransactions, uh, like just make that entire ecosystem more democratic. I would love for someone to come up with like a more democratic version of Steam where people, the creators of the video games, actually get paid directly, and anyone who makes content in game, they get paid directly when I buy something, rather than like it having to go through Steam's 3, 4 different like paywalls. And them taking their own huge cut. It's like 35%, which is just insane every single time. Um, so I think X402 can actually enable that. Like in the future, I would love for video game devs to be able to just release an indie video game, and you don't actually have to like enter your credit card details or sign up to Steam anywhere to pay them, because X402 actually provides all the details to your phone or your PC, so you can just connect your wallet and there you go. Like now you can pay to this random video game creator you found on the internet who hasn't registered to any middleman that you need to trust. And it's just the two of you. It's just the player and the creator, and you can pay them as you like. So that really excites me.
Yeah, I agree. I've been thinking a lot about that too. Like what makes Steam valuable, right? Like Steam's valuable because of their like the discovery layer, right? That's like pretty much it. Like they've gotten so big at this point that everybody knows that if they want to find a game and they want to download a game and buy a game, they know they can more than likely do it on Steam. And so it kind of becomes to where like what Steam is doing isn't so novel anymore. I remember it was though. Like I was an early Counter-Strike player back in the day, and I remember once they took that transition from like just Half-Life games into like moving into like their marketplace. And at first I was like, well, what are they doing? But it ended up being obviously like just a genius play. But it's kind of interesting because I was thinking about this too, and I was talking to my friend Did about this. Like I kind of think that X402s kind of have almost the same threat vector though. So like what's the biggest issue with gaming? The biggest issue with gaming is that like how do you find new games that you want to play, right? And so Steam is that discovery layer where it has like reviews and stuff like that. And so you can find games. Well, the problem is kind of happening already with X402s because it's like, well, what's the discovery layer on X402s? Like right now we have, these quote unquote indexers, but like really all they are is just there's no automatic way to find these server endpoints. And so especially there's not a really good way to like rate them and have any sort of like understanding of what the hell they even do or if they do it well. And so that's where this discovery layer comes back in. Well, what if there's this bad future where there's a Steam of X402s and they index all the X402s? Everybody's like, okay, well, this is the place where I find good X402s. But then all they have to do is just obfuscate the X402s and make people go through their like supreme, singular API and then they just upcharge at that point. So they could just upcharge every single endpoint and then obfuscate where it's actually going. All they're sending you back is the response. And so that it kind of always comes back to the discovery layer. And so I'm like, that's what I'm knocking my head around. Like, well, how do you solve the discovery layer on X402s? I don't know.
I think for something like Steam, like if you're trying to come up with an alternative for Steam, you can actually make it completely open. Like if you have an open source alternative where you know that they can't like stop someone from adding something even if they tried, and if they do, like the community can just fork it. Like anyone can go in and publish their own game, and then once you are running a game, then it's just between you and the creator. And maybe this is something I should pursue. I mean, I've been playing video games all my life, and if I'm not gonna try and solve this problem, who else is? Maybe I should pursue this. But like, imagine opening a video game, and that's where X402 comes in. Like, I'm in my head, I'm just envisioning this community-run open source discovery layer for video games. uh, and once you open the game, it's just up to the dev. Like they just need to wire up their buttons so that it sends the correct instructions to my machine so that I can pay. So I think that's an interesting way to eliminate any intermediaries or like middlemen. Obviously, it's easier said than done. That's why no one has been able to do it yet, and it's a mammoth task to like go up against Team. But yeah, I think it's possible. I think it's possible, and I'd love to take a stab at it. Maybe.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a good idea. I mean, it's hard to go against Steam, but the ROI is massive. So
Yeah, I think like one thing that I wanted to also highlight around X402 essentially is what it can do is just make like this almost this new interest, and this is very early, but create a world where actually let me take a step back. If we look at crypto today, there's one thing that's been resilient: bear market, bull market, whatever market we're in, which is DeFi. Like lending and borrowing online has proven product market fit. um, people within crypto lend and borrow all the time and earn yield on whatever they borrow. Even in like, there's a whole low risk DeFi piece that Vitalik wrote, which is worth a read, around that being actually a big use case of crypto, like literally a universal savings account. I'm from Nepal. Like, there's no sustainable way for me to save really there, but I can at least like go on something like Aave and save a lot more money. Also just be protected from downturns within a given state, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, there's this proof of like, okay, DeFi lending works. But sometimes like there's ways to where what's being lent is still like dollars. Through things like X402, you can actually like create new ways in which others can begin lending from these pools. So instead of me like borrowing from a pool and solely having dollars like USDC, I can actually borrow from a pool and immediately get compute credits or something like it's like outcome based credit. And I think there's this level of programmability that gets opened up, which I think is fascinating. So if you were to think about like, there's a pool where, let's say Figma like has a really expensive subscription and I can't afford it because I'm not in an enterprise. I can borrow from a pool that immediately when I borrow from it, I never handle money. It just goes directly into Figma credits. And kind of creates this stamp of approval that I use these Figma credits, and then that increases my reputation score, so I can borrow more. And in that lens, like what it does is it just creates this more programmable financial internet when it comes to things like subscriptions, when it comes to things like SaaS, etc. And hopefully that also can democratize like the ability to use these tools for the everyday builder, for the everyday person. And hopefully that actually does make it cheaper and more affordable as well. So there's like that side, which I'm like, it's much earlier on. It's much like messier, I think, right now. But that's been pretty fascinating too. Like X402 opens a chasm of like programmable finance on the web, which I think is obviously pretty important, as we all know.
Yeah, and if I actually if we zoom out and kind of think about crypto in the in the scope of the entire world. X402, I think is a Bushi, you can't hear me? Okay, Bushi, if you can, I'll just try to exit and rejoin. So X402 is a great example of, for the longest time we had crypto was being attacked, and it's only recently that crypto has become fully embraced, and X402 is a great example of the outcome of where when crypto is embraced and it becomes accepted, then suddenly it's going to remake the entire economy. So we're seeing the process of finance essentially, I think, is going to be replaced with large chunks of crypto, and that seems obvious at this point with the regulatory clarity. And then and I think a lot of the big players in the internet economy realize this, and so that's why Stripe is building their own blockchain, because they can tell that all of this is going to be replaced. And so I think X402 is a beneficiary of the kind of regulatory clarity and general direction of crypto being accepted. And then we're going to see the dream of crypto, the idea that it's permissionless, the idea that there are no middlemen, the idea that you can do anything. These things can, we're just seeing the beginning of it. For example, we're just talking about games. And I think micropayments to game developers and creators of items inside of games. And actually a lot of the items also become NFTs. Like all of that is all going, I think it's all going to happen. And it's only now with the regulatory clarity and general direction of crypto being accepted that that's all going to happen. And so I'm really excited for it. And also the fact that all of this happens in the age of AI, I think is pretty dramatic. Because when you have agents, and these agents in many ways are going to be sovereign, the way that they interface with the world in a commerce way, I think is going to be crypto, and I think that's a very well accepted kind of idea. And with X402, they'll be able to accept payments and provide services, and then they themselves will be able to pay for other agents. And so today we may not have an agentic economy yet, but I think the vast majority of the world's economy is going to be agentic in some reasonable timescale. And so the fact that X402 is here because of the regulatory clarity and that crypto is accepted while AI is taking off, I think is going to create some crazy future. And so just wanted to pose the question for the group, what do you think is the future, the agentic future of all this based on X402?
Yeah, I can go into this a little bit in the sense of some of the things that are happening on Ethereum. So as you may or may not know, right now we have a decentralized AI team at the Ethereum Foundation, which has grown in size, and they are hard at work, working across the board with Google has integrated certain things. It's been very cool to see that team grow, and happy to share resources afterwards. But essentially, when we look at AI and what it needs is this implicit idea again of trust. Like, how can we get to agents if we are an economy is based off of the idea of trust? I trust you. I give you X, you give me Y. We're in an economy. The only reason why I can give you X and the only reason why you'd give me Y back is because there's implicit trust between us. And for humans, it was easy to grow implicit trust. I mean, arguably easy, right? Like, we look each other in the eye back in the day and trade a certain item. Then we started writing ledgers, and it's okay, we have these record books. And then we started building the industrial era came about, and then we started having money kind of go in banks. And then the evolution of that money became a digital open ledger, right, which is the blockchain, which is Ethereum, for example. And that's where we were. Now, because we were able to build up into that, because we have implicit trust, I can look you in the eye and be I trust you. And, I can learn about you in different ways, and we have context of each other in order to make decisions that are trust-based. We can trust each other. Agents don't have that at all. there's no way for agents to really trust each other. And if we want to imagine this agentic economy, you need a way for that to happen. So there's actually this thing called ERC 8004. You can Google it. Happy to talk more about it as well. Which is basically a ERC standard, which is all about this. Like, how can we solve the problem of agentic trust? How can we get agents to trust each other, right? And like that is where the role of blockchains comes in. Again, blockchains are trustware. Like it's literally that's I think one of the ways to really think about what it could be. And that's, yeah, so how do we build these agents that implicitly have trust? And the wording is interesting because, it's like trustless agents. What that really essentially means is like, you don't have to like find crazy, if you put it on a blockchain, it becomes relatively trustless. I can send you money without necessarily having to trust everything else in that process, right? I just like trust the system in itself in a way. That is, I think, where the new paradigm will be coming. I think this is specifically this ERC is definitely worth studying. I'd follow the DAI team. I actually just retweeted something that Jessie from that team wrote, and she did an incredible job with it. That really explains like agentic payments and stuff as well.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think what I found to be really interesting about agents is that many of these social systems that we have created as humans, a lot of it is going to be reflected in agentic societies, as in an agent spins up and it needs to get some work done. How does it trust all these agents that are out there? And you could start developing relations with these agents, right? You could give them a little bit of money, ask them to do some computation, and it comes back with some data, and you verify that indeed it did the correct thing. And then your reputation, the reputation value you have on that agent goes up. But if you take that one step further, you're like, okay, is there a review system of all these agents where other agents have reviewed each other? And then you're like, okay, I like to, I have a prior for like what this agent's reliability and trustworthiness of doing its work is. And then that's the prior. You start with it, and then you interact with that agent, and then you have you keep updating the posterior. And so it's really fascinating how agent, a lot of the mechanisms that I think about for agents, it reflects how humans have created these systems. And I just found it interesting.
Totally. And I just want to add really quickly on this, like essentially one of the things that make this very important for this to happen on a maximally decentralized blockchain is that no one should be able to edit the truth. That is like the core. If like there's going to be other systems, centralized systems that may try to mimic this, etc. But the thing is like trustware is only trustware because no one can edit something. Like it is fundamentally the truth. There's not a corporation in the world that can enter your brain and reorganize how you perceive trust as a human being to another human being. We've protected that. We can't have the same thing be like we can't let that happen to agents, especially as we trust agents more for our own lives, and as a to take care of us in different ways. So that is one part which I think is very, very important. And again, like that's backed by economic stake. Like you can't edit Ethereum unless you attack it with 51% of the supply of ETH, and there's the whole like economics behind that too. So there's this broad story of like, okay, there will be ways that people will try to create like agentic trust, but you don't want that to be put in a server that anyone can click or edit, because then we enter a dystopian post-truth society.
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this too. I mean, Moloch Research has been working on decentralized agents now for like the last year, or at least trying to get to the point of like what is a maximally decentralized AI agent? What does it look like, and how does it work? And I think we've gotten pretty close. I think we've gotten closer than anybody else. And yeah, we've been following the Ethereum proposal really closely, and I can see some interesting stuff there. But I think there's also other ways that you could get to that point as well. Like another, like kind of answer your question, Han. Like another way that could be done is like some sort of proof of compute model where the agent runs on like decentralized infrastructure. It's provably decentralized. Maybe that runs in like a trusted execution environment of some sorts that can be provable. And so then now it's like it's trustless, it's tamper proof essentially, right? But then to go a step further, to have its code be open source so that like anybody can go do their due diligence on like, okay, well, what code is running inside of these containers? And obviously, like if as agents get smarter, you know, they'll be able to go through code bases fairly quickly and do their own due diligence on like, okay, let me see what the intention of this agent is. You know, is any of it malicious? But then also to go like one really big step further of what would be the most important would be some sort of trustware like Binji's talking about, like proof of compute. Like, okay, you know, this agent says it's running this code inside of its decentralized trustless container. This is its like attestation proving that that is the exact code that is running, and it has not changed at all. That could be another, you know, implementation of that. So I'm very interested in the decentralized agent stuff. I'm also interested to see where the 402 stuff goes, but it's kind of the 402 stuff is kind of like counterintuitive a little bit to the decentralized agents because you're trying to remove as many dependencies as possible, not add more. And a lot of 402s are just extra dependencies at this point.
I just want to emphasize what Binji said again. I don't have anything new to add, but I think it's just really important to stress how important it is that, for the lack of a better term, Ethereum becomes the next big app store. Because if you look today, it's all the app stores like, again, Steam, Apple, Play Store. They own all the distribution fronts, and they charge these huge fees. They control if your work gets out into the hands of people or not. Um, and you guys must have seen ChatGPT rolling out their entire marketplace thing where you can like connect different services, and it's not entirely agentic yet, but like it's like almost in that direction. I can see a future where those guys are gonna try and make an agentic marketplace where you just kind of give instructions to your ChatGPT that, hey, I wanna get this done, and you can pay whoever you need to get that task accomplished. uh, and if we still again end up paying a middleman for this future of app stores where these small tasks are handled by AI agents. And again, you are just trusting someone in the middle and paying them a huge fee. We're just going to repeat this unfortunate state of the internet and the internet economics in the present. I think Ethereum has this incredibly unique opportunity to be the source of truth and be this aggregator where people can come together, exchange value, and coordinate with each other. And we really need to like take this opportunity with both hands, because we still have a lot of time to catch up and make sure it's Ethereum that becomes this venue for exchange of value, and it becomes this marketplace. But it's not centralized and greedy like the present day marketplaces. It's actually incredibly neutral, and I think that's just so important for, I mean, it might even be one of the most important things about the agentic future.
Absolutely agreed with this. And by the way, for those listening, apparently we're having a lot of technical difficulties where some of the guests can't hear each other. So we are wading through the darkness to kind of transmit. I guess I'll. So I don't know if Binji you heard the hype, but
I did. I heard that.
okay,
Luckily.
great.
Yeah.
Excellent. And we heard that there's no issues with the live stream, so that's a good thing.
Awesome.
But I totally agree with you guys. I think in many ways, Ethereum and crypto, they are civilizational projects that actually will go on for like centuries, where in the scope of history, it has been it has been an effort towards like decentralizing. I mean, whether it started with government systems and then now with finance, and then now with data, I think we have a chance to remake a lot of these things. I totally agree with you, Dhai, that you know, we live in a world where you know, you try to put something into an app store, and there's a set of rules in the app store, and it's all incentivized towards the consolidation of power inside the app store. And there is no way to really appeal a system there if it's rejected for whatever reason. And we actually saw that in earlier iterations of crypto apps. Many apps were just rejected outright because it didn't conform to the idea that payments have to go through some established Web2 payment rails. And so I think it's such an important thing that now that we have the regulatory clarity and society embracing crypto and all of these systems being replaced with crypto systems, we have a chance to kind of like break apart some of these centralized powers, and it becomes a permissionless system. So it really is validating for all of us that we have been in crypto for a while now. It really is an exciting moment that we could take a lot of the principles of crypto and ensure that we create systems, civilizational systems, that ensures that people can do what they want to do, and they don't have to rely on centralized power preventing them from doing things. So 100% agreed. So we have 7 minutes left, and I guess I wanted to end the episode with a question, which is with x402 and now we're talking about broadly crypto. What are some of the most exciting applications of x402 and other things? Like, what are you most excited about in the coming months, years, and possibly even decades?
If I can start, I remember Solana came up with this payment system. I think it was called Solana Pay, where you could just like other QR-based payment systems like UPI in India, and I think the US has Cash App, something like that. Like most merchants in India, they just place this QR code in their shops, and you just scan it with your phone, and there you go, you can make a payment. Uh, I don't see a reason why we can't do that with X402, and this time without any intermediaries. In fact, that's something I came up with this idea during the live stream, and I think I'm gonna try and build it. Uh, I think that's just something I find so interesting, because again, like in my family, I've had people who have had their bank accounts frozen because I don't know, someone decided that their bank account was fishy. We don't need that. Like, we can just let people accept crypto payments, and now X402 makes it super simple. I don't even need to have uh, like the local app from India. Anyone visiting India, they can, because everyone uses the same uh, standard. So I can pay using a wallet of my choice, and they'll get their money. So I find that super exciting to just think about. Yeah.
On my end, like +1 to everything that I just said. I think like one way to think about it is X402 is a playground for essentially financialized agentic behavior. If you want to just focus on agents specifically, but like at the ground root, it's like it turns intent into verifiable action. Anything that does that is fair game. The real power basically can give, in some ways, can give agents or humans even a way to commit, pay, or prove something on chain without necessarily like middlemans the whole time. You can think of it as like programmable trust between machines, humans, etc. Some general ideas that I'm curious to see people build. The one that I mentioned earlier, still an evolutionary concept, but I do think, like, I strongly believe that credit is the next big DeFi thing to happen. And imagine building an agent native credit network where you can allow agents to borrow compute and repay automatically from their future revenue streams. So, in some way you build this novel credit system, especially for the species that has no way to build credit in meat space, yet will still become very productive and will need capital in order to do certain actions. Another one is like, you have like basic like marketplaces for APIs, verifiable usage with those. You can have like outcome-based bounties. Instead of just like speculative grants, you can actually have them be funded with verifiable completions. So you can have like tasks encoded with some sort of x402 system, and funds get auto released when defined outcomes are proven. So like, why is that cool? Like that kind of changes the whole idea of funding, and you're getting into this world where there's like ICOs are making a comeback and all that, but there's still not accountability. Like accountability is kind of missing. And creating programmable finance and like something like x402, utilizing things like that, will allow us to bring in accountability in these systems, which can change the entire model of how anything gets funded ever, right? Like instead of just giving someone money, you give them outcomes, and when they achieve those outcomes, the money gets unlocked. And that's done in a trustless manner. So once the contract's signed, it's signed. Those are just some examples. I think there's like so much more. It's so early. Like it kind of almost feels like when I don't know, when NFTs first came out, or like even when DeFi first came out, it's just like, okay, like interesting primitives, but like what can we really do with it? That's where we're at right now. And I think these sort of discussions really help pick up the pace on like what is possible. So we'll probably look back on this and be like, wow, I can't believe we missed this very obvious thing. That's part of what makes this thing exciting over time. But it does seem like the worlds are converging. The AI world is very clearly around. There's a lot of people have their skepticism, rightfully so, as well. But I do think these things are very synergistic. You cannot have like like a new intelligence come into the world, participate in the world without that intelligence having trust. That is a core human feature. That is the core reason we've been able to build civilizations, societies, everything, is because we've been able to trust each other. And even we have issues trusting each other, despite having some advantages. Like I can see you, you can see me, and we can have implicit trust. Imagine what it's like for AI. Like it needs trustware in order to survive in a meaningful way, and want to actually like participate in a broader economy. So that part is just like literally everything ever is what I'm excited about, because this can be a part of it all. So yeah, sorry for yapping for so long.
Yeah, I like both of those ideas. I really like the payment app idea. I think you're in line with what I'm thinking, the use case. I think it's hard to predict the future of these things. And I agree with Binji. We'll probably look back in the future and be like, it's so obvious in retrospect. But I do think a little bit of the AI narrative around 402s is a little overhyped right now. I think it's a little bit more useful for human use right now than it is for AI. Now, do I see the potential in the future? Like, absolutely. And I agree with Benji. Like, at some point there has to be like that foundational layer there. And so this could be that, right? But we don't know yet. In terms of what I'm most excited about, I mean, right now I'm working on a digital goods marketplace. Basically, I think disrupting like things that work now in the Web2 world, disrupting those industries, essentially by just being able to process transactions at a much cheaper rate. I think that's like the most interesting thing to me right now. So we're working on, Moloch Research is working on a digital goods marketplace where essentially people can go and sell any sort of data. And it's trustless in the sense that we don't intermediary the funds. The funds are, through 402, the funds are sent directly to the seller. And then we don't even intermediary the files either, which is really interesting. And so like there's existing platforms out there like Gumroad, for instance. Gumroad takes like 10% plus transaction fees. Etsy takes like 6% plus transaction fees, et cetera. And so there's going to be this whole future where these platforms are going to have a really hard time competing with platforms like what Moloch Research is creating. And then really just becomes a discovery layer game, kind of like our conversation with Steam, to where it's like, the discovery layer is still the most important piece. But as fees start to get driven down through technology like 402, we're going to start to see like a lot of disruption. And then by then we'll probably have some other stuff. So yeah, this is our website. If anybody wants to go check it out, giveme.io. We haven't like actually launched it yet, so it's live, but it's not fully launched. But yeah, if you're interested, you guys can follow me and get some more information.
Amazing. Dhai had to drop off. He had a hard cutoff, and but this I thought this conversation was fascinating. I think there is so much to do with x402. We're just at the beginning of it, and I think x402 is part of the entire kind of arc that society is going to go through, where crypto will replace a lot of systems that exist today. And so x402 is one example of it. And I can't wait for what Bushi's going to build, what dhai's going to build, and Binji, what you're building and advocating for at Ethereum Foundation. And I think all of it being based on something like Ethereum, where it is, as Vitalik and you have said, trustware. I think that's absolutely essential. So pretty exciting. I love this conversation. Just wanted to thank all the guests and all the entire audience for listening. This was the second episode of Bonafides, and we have a lot of episodes coming up that will be conversations about now. So things that are amazing and interesting that you want to listen to. And we have a lot coming up. So excited to see you in the next episode. Thank you all for listening, and hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you all. This is awesome.